Here we're back at the assumptions and drivers section of this base case model. And we're working off of the same base case assumptions as with the previous client. And we'll make amendments going forward based on the information provided to us in this case. In this situation, more line items were affected because we were given more information. So some of it was around competitive positioning. Some of it was about growth strategy. Obviously, MDM Medical is looking to create new products to sell into existing markets. We also worked through a very basic pastel analysis, so we have some information about the broader economy as well as the business environment in which this company is operating. In this case, we're going to actually start with the balance sheet. So we know that this company is going to have to make cash investments into CapEx, capital expenditures, in order to have the productive capacity to create these new products. So the easy way to model that is by reducing our capital asset turnover ratio, which will in turn increase the assets on our balance sheet. But if you watch the cash flow statement on the right, you'll see that is a use of cash and cash flow for investing. They're going to start in the current year, so let's throw a number in like 3.75. Perhaps that carries forward into the next year, and then maybe we see it start to stabilize, something closer to our base case 4.25. We were told that management is looking to debt finance some of this, some perhaps all of the expansion. We don't have all of that information. That would be part of your due diligence. But let's say that debt increases materially in the current year to help fund some of that capital expenditure. Take a look at the cash flow statement. We can assume that some or all of this will be drawn into the subsequent year. Perhaps they start paying some of it back, and then we get something closer to their baseline of $20 billion in debt. So you can see already big impacts to the cash flow statement. When a business is reinvesting for growth in this type of nature, you may also see things like the payout ratio get reduced in order to help conserve cash. So to recoup some extra cash, we may see something like a reduction here in the payout ratio. Now let's turn our attention to the income statement. Management suggested that in the first full year, we may see something on the order of 12% growth in revenue. Well, that's not this current year. That's starting next year. So here we can have a big jump in revenue. And maybe that carries forward 8%, and then we see something closer to baseline going forward, but of course off of a larger base of revenue. We also know that the gross margin may be affected slightly. They said perhaps 1 to 2 percentage points. We could say 2 full percentage points here just to get a sense of what it might look like. Again, that won't occur in the current year, but certainly going forward within the first full year of operations with their new product offerings. So let's say 53, and let's say that holds all the way across into 2026 forecasted figures. Beyond just CapEx, we know when there are new product offerings for a company, significant spend needs to go into R&D. If 2 to 2.5%, let's call it 2.3, was the base case estimate, we may see in this instance, in the current year, we may see them ramp up to something on the order of 4% of revenue. Again, we would have to interview management, better understand the benchmarks and what's going on in the industry, but we could assume that a significant increase would occur in research and development. This may come off a little bit in subsequent years. Let's say 3.5. Maybe that comes down, no, we'll say, 3.5, maybe 3, and then something like 2%. You can see how that affects the company's bottom line here and their EBITDA figure. And finally, we also know, or we're told, that we're in a rising rate environment. That's something that you could only know by analyzing the broader economy. Well, this company, as we see down here, has taken on considerably more debt. that won't be repaid in the near term. So rising rates are going to affect that company a little bit more in the near term. Let's say 6.75 in the current year, and that's going to jump up again, maybe 7, let's say 7.5. Maybe we get to 8% if we're in a really, really high inflation environment and central banks are raising rates. So you can see the cash flow statement and the income statement have changed really rather dramatically based on some of the information we were provided in this case, both at the balance sheet level and the income statement level. Again, this exercise is not intended to teach you how to model, but rather how to think about and how to conceptualize information that you're provided, whether it's in the broader economy or within the context of the industry, and how you might start thinking about translating those into model assumptions in order to be able to conduct much more comprehensive quantitative analysis for a company.